Okay, so I just got a message, like a download in my brain about salt and black people and slavery and all of that. And I think this might even apply to sugar. So I was thinking about like black people and our seasonings and how that's such a huge part of our food identity and how flavorful our food is. And I was thinking about it because I've been going through a lot of food changes recently. I've stopped eating so much salt and I've stopped having so much sugar. And at the very beginning, it was kind of difficult, but it wasn't, because I did it slowly. So I didn't notice a lot of like withdrawal symptoms or anything like that. But I did notice, I like had a realization, I think maybe last week, around how much I had stopped eating salt. And I think it was probably compared to foods that I now found very salty. And I've been doing the same thing with sugar for the past like year. And I was thinking about it and how, black people, many of us use a lot of salts in our foods and a lot of sugars in our food. And part of that is for flavor, but part of that is because a lot of these seasonings and the culture around seasonings have been passed down from, slavery and from the times before then. It's ancestral for us. And I was thinking back to, what it was like to cook during that time and how important food must have been during those days, because salt and sugar are addictive and they're known to give you rushes of joy and happiness. And during that time, there must have been, there obviously was such a depletion of joy and of pleasure. And so some of the ways that our ancestors gave that back to themselves were through food. Food has always been healing for black people, and for really all like oppressed people. Food is a huge thing in so many cultures who have also dealt with colonialism, genocide, white supremacy, racism, all that shit. Even like with women and, even the attachment to cooking or baking and things like that. You could say that food is a very healing thing for a lot of oppressed people. For one, because it's one thing that you get to have control over if you're cooking it. You get to give yourself something, you get to give yourself a gift, you get to be in control of your body in this way. There's many reasons why food is important to us. And I don't know about what our ancestors had access to in terms of seasonings and things like that, but when I think about why so many black people I know in the States, I don't know about Canada statistics, but I'm sure it's very similar. I know in the Caribbean, in many places, there's a lot of struggles with diabetes and heart disease and things that have to do with salt and sugar. And it's because our relationship with those things, it's not just about the flavor and it's not just about our identity. It's also ancestral for us. It keeps us connected to our ancestors. And it was one of the many ways that black people back in the day were able to get any source of joy. It was through food. And so you have that over intake of salt and sugar because it was giving you this joy that you weren't getting anywhere else. It was that one resource. But now we're in a place where we don't have to eat the way our ancestors did. Back then it was for survival. Now it's cultural, but the culture needs to change. And I think that our ancestors are kind of trying to bring about that change through implementing a lot of switches in diets for our people. Because while it might have been helpful back then, it's now becoming a detriment. And this is what happens when parts of your culture are so closely connected to the past through trauma, really. Food is a connection of joy, but it's very, very balanced and also being a connection of trauma. And in order to reclaim our relationship with food as black people, we need to restructure our relationship with salts and sugars and seasoning. Honestly, and with flavor. to understand that we don't need to eat as our ancestors did, because the way our ancestors were eating was also the experience of slavery. We're eating in the energy of enslavement. And while that is not our intention, that is sometimes what's happening. And even post-slavery, I mean, during Reconstruction and Jim Crow, all these eras when Black people couldn't even go to the same grocery stores, couldn't afford the same quality of food, there were many sacrifices that had to be made. And sitting around the table and eating was one way that we formed community. It was a way that we took care of each other. It was a sense of control we have over our bodies and over our health and over our joy. And a lot of it came from lack and scarcity, which ended in overconsumption of things that were toxic for us, but also were giving us these small joys. And I think now, Spirit and our ancestors are coming through and saying, we understand, we know where this comes from, we understand the heart of it, but it's time to create change, because we've had generations and cycles of health problems in our communities because of these things that are coming from a traumatic place, So I think that we're going to see a big shift around salt and sugar intake for the Black community, and I'm really looking forward to it, honestly, because I didn't realize I had even been doing this, and I wasn't doing it intentionally. I think my ancestors were honestly just moving through me and shifting my diet. And now I understand why it's so important. It's even as simple as, I got this. I've been switching up what I get from Starbucks. I'm starting to get things with less and less sugar. And smaller sizes. I went down from, I used to get venti a lot, but now I've gone down from even getting grande to tall. And I got a grande this time just because I was like, I'm going to treat myself. And I realized it's not even a treat. It's too much. I'm full. I'm stuffed to the brim, and look at how much I have left, right? So we're seeing these things that we consider treats are actually poison for us. And I think that the veil is being taken down, and we are beginning to really understand why food is so important and what you drink is so important, and how much it contributes to your quality of life in a fundamental way, even in the small ways. So yeah, that's it. Bye.